Order the April 11th meeting of the Conestoga Valley Board of School Directors, and please join me in the pledge of the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to welcome everyone that's here in the boardroom with us, as well as those that are joining us online. May we have attendance, please?
7 members present tonight. Mr. Dillman and Mr. Talley are absent.
And we do have a quorum. I will start with my usual disclaimer. This is our work session, one of 2 meetings per month in which we receive most of the informational presentations as well as discuss and deliberate future decisions. There may be some action voting items required on timely issues or to meet time restraint guidelines. Our meetings observe the requirements of the school code, legislative directives, the original Act 84 Sunshine Law, and all subsequent amendments, judicial rulings, applicable regulations, and our school district policies to the best of our understanding and ability. All agendas and related public agenda.
No.
If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a move and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we are ready to move on with the superintendent's comments.
Madam President, I am at a loss for words, so I'm going to turn it right back over to you. There are more important things on this agenda
Yes,
than what I
there
have to
are.
say.
He didn't warn me. Board comments. Any board members have comments about district activity? We're all anxious to get through this.
Well, I did want to say, and Kathy's probably going to say the same thing, we attended the musical, The Music Man, put on by CV's High School, and it was awesome. The kids did a great job. I watched all of them, because my daughter was on stage, and I'm a supportive parent, so we went to every one, and just a fantastic job by the kids in the drama department. Really, really good stuff.
And Lancaster News printed my letter to the editor saying how
Yes.
fantastic they were.
Yes,
They nailed it.
we appreciate that, and everybody's willing to do that.
I know from the kids, they probably still don't know you're a board member, but they did appreciate. They said, that Trowbridge that sent a letter in? They were excited. So you had some of the students
I
reading
did
it.
go backstage, dress her silver
Yeah,
night, and told them how great they were.
that's awesome.
Any other comments from the board? This is a place in the meeting where we allow public comments. Would anyone from the public like to address the board on an agenda item? If not, we'll move on to the CBVA report.
And Mel Upton, I'm going to bring you up front. If you could introduce everybody, and I'll get the PowerPoint.
Okay, I'm
You ready
actually
as
gonna
soon
have
as it
Maya come up
downloads?
and join me. Is it right here, kiddo? We have one brave soul here tonight to speak with you.
And she looks so excited.
Oh, she's super excited, right?
All right, kid, as soon as we're loaded here, you can tell me when the
Hello, my name is Maya Bear and I'm 10 years old and in 4th grade. Up until 2 months ago, I attended Smoketown all day for school. Then my mom and I decided to check out CVVA. I now attend Smoketown until 11:30 each day. Then I come home and do my CVVA work until it is completed. I've chosen to go to CVVA because I realized during the school year that I needed to be in a different school environment. I wanted to learn at home because I'm not around lots of people who distract me from learning and I can focus on my lessons better. Some kids at Smoketown said mean and inappropriate things. My class was hard to be in because everyone was loud and disrespectful. My teacher has tried to stop them, but they won't listen and that makes it very hard to learn. I think CVVA is a better place for me to be because it is quieter and we get to do other interesting things while we learn. Some interesting things I get to do is experiments during science, and I get to work ahead on things that I already know how to do. Sometimes I go to Fritz to do these little classes with some other CVA students. A week ago, we went on a nature hike and planted seeds and flowers. It was very fun. We also made ramen noodles and put different ingredients in it. We got to try our food and also could take it home. My favorite part about CVVA is getting to meet new friends from other schools. I also like to do work in a quiet place. Also, I get to spend time with my mother. Sometimes some of my other friends that do school at home come over to my house. Mrs. Shetter and Ms. Odell are very kind and make me feel at home. I think CVVA is the best place for me. Thank you.
Awesome. Well done. Well done.
And speaking of Mrs. Shetter, she's here tonight as well to support Maya. So up on the screen there, we have our logo that was recently created by some students in Nick Hauer's class. So that was a last spring addition to the program, which was a fantastic experience. The girls came to my office about 8 different times until we finally narrowed it down to the logo, and it was just a fantastic experience for all. And that's sort of our tagline that we now use: flexible, personalized, and connected. So the rest of this presentation, I just have a couple of numbers for you. I know that you had asked before about our full-time students versus blended, and so I wanted to make sure you can see all that, so you can go ahead. So why CVVA? I'm not going to ask you to read all of this, but basically it's the flexibility that we can offer, whether it's a full-time or blended environment for the students. Blended can be one course or multiple courses that they take with CVVA, and then they have some courses in person. So it depends on the student what that means. So it's not a particular number. Our courses are taught by CV teachers. That is somewhat unique in this area. So we are under the umbrella of the IU, the Lancaster Lebanon Virtual Solutions, and we meet monthly with other schools from the area, from Lancaster Lebanon, and we are one of the few that actually use our own teachers. Most of the schools do use the platform teachers, and that has been a real bonus of our program, and the other school districts want to get to that. That's what they're looking to do, is to be more like this model. So that has definitely been a selling point for us. And then they still have access to the CVVA teachers through learner and learning coach online sessions, teacher office hours, our internet cafes and our learning centers, which is the other really big bonus of our district, is that we have these specifically built places for this innovative learning. Many of the schools that do have virtual academies in this area will have a spot of a couple desks in the library somewhere for students to sit and work on their virtual learning. They do not have the cafes and the learning centers like we do. So that's also something that we really tout with our program. We have social emotional learning opportunities, educational excursions, where we say bring the family. It doesn't have to just be the student, where on a field trip, that's traditionally been the case, where students take the school bus on a field trip, and it's the student and the teacher that goes, in a couple of chaperones, where we say bring grandma, bring your little sibling, come on these educational excursions and really make it a family environment. We have opportunities for accelerated coursework. Last year we had a kindergartner doing 2nd grade math. That's hard to do in the brick and mortar building, so we have those opportunities, electives, enrichment courses that aren't available in other places. Of course, you're still a CV student, which is the best part about this. So you can go to prom, you can go to pep rallies, you can attend all the school events and extracurriculars, and you still get our diploma. These are long quotes. I'll just point out a couple of words for you. These are coming straight from some of our families. And so you will see words in there like flexibility, thrived with virtual learning. We now have 2 children in CVVA. The teachers are welcoming, kind, inclusive, understanding, dedicated, caring, and supportive. Wonderful journey, an answered prayer. That they can work outside of school hours, work ahead so they can get outside as a family more often, that they are excelling at their own pace. So you'll see these themes that come out, and that's sort of where our tagline came from, that flexible, personalized, and connected, because we're getting that right from the mouths of our families. We are K through 12. We have over 200 students currently within our programs, 31 teachers, and you can see the split there. The SSF is our special services facilitator. So that is learning support, GIEPs, and 504s. We have 11 new high school electives for next year. They are all electives that are taught in-house as well, and eventually we want to start offering electives that are not mirrored in person and that anyone can take. 3 coordinators, they are really the heart of our program. Dr. Facera at the high school, Jim Orr at the middle school, and Dory Shetter at the elementary school. Without those 3, this program does not exist. We have our 2 internet cafes at the high school and the middle school, and then our learning center at Fritz, which will move to New Smoketown. And then there are some of the numbers that you were asking for before. So you can see that our blended schedule is highest at the high school. A couple of reasons. Transportation being one of them, that the students can usually provide their own transportation, and so that allows them to leave during the school day. At the middle school and the elementary school, when we have blended students, for the most part, they will go to the internet cafe at the middle school, or they will be driven home by parents at the elementary school. So you can see the number breakdowns there. Our special services with our IEPs, GIEPs, 504s, and Ls, we found that our English language learners can really thrive in an online environment because of the translation tools that they can use, and they can slow it down and do it at their own pace. So while that might not intuitively sound like it would make sense for an English language learner to be an online learner, it really can work. And then I broke it down by building and grade just so you can see those numbers. But it's not the numbers, it's the individuals. And
I love
so,
this slide, I just wanna tell you.
what's that?
I love this slide.
Yeah.
Because the CVV numbers and pop, and what you just said, this is what it's about.
Yeah, this is what it's
So
about.
thank you.
You got it. And so of course there we have our Olympian, and she was a CVVA student because it allowed her to participate in, well, worldwide competitions while still being a CV student. But our students choose and our families choose CVVA for a number of reasons. So anxiety and medical issues. The CTC attendance, we have students who want to attend CTC but couldn't because of the required coursework that they still needed to take at the high school. And so we can pull those classes outside of the school day, and then they can go and specialize in their trades while still taking our required courses. For some students, it's credit recovery. We have students who want to be employed, but want something other than sort of the after-school employment that's normally offered to them, the retail and the fast food. So they can work in the trades or in their family businesses during the day and then have CVVA at night. Some students want early graduation and they can accelerate their coursework. We have students that are homeless or have split living arrangements, and this allows them to really access the learning when it makes sense within their families. Of course, the non-CV athletic involvement. We have other students who are championship Irish dancers and go to competitions and utilize it that way. And then we have I call them our 12 pluses. So these are our seniors who did not graduate and have decided now that they want their diploma, and it just is too logistically difficult to come back into the classroom when you should have graduated with your class. So they will return and get their diplomas through CVVA. And then a couple more, students that have made some choices that have caused them to be expelled can still work through CVVA so that when they are ready to come back, we still have that connection. We've had the ability to work with them throughout and make sure that they're making the correct choices. Internship availability, that's what that photo is there. She had an opportunity to work with the Barnstormers, but it was not going to work with her schedule, and those are her goals are for sports management, so we pulled some classes out so she could intern. Other scheduling issues, family traveling jobs. We have some students that have intended to drop out, but when we offered them CVVA, it was just sort of that carrot that they needed to get through because it offered them the flexibility that they were looking for. Our AP and dual enrollment students can take CVVA courses outside of the schedule so that they can have more of those higher level courses during the school day. We had a student who did not take NCAA eligible courses as a freshman and sophomore, but was then starting to be looked at for athletics in college, and by that point decided that he needed those NCAA courses. So we were able to go back with CVVA, give him the NCAA courses, which you would never put him back in a ninth grade course again. It just wouldn't make sense, but we could do it through this so that he was then eligible. And translation options for L. So it's a whole, and there are more, but I'm already over the time that I was allotted, so I could just keep going, so.
May I ask this? Especially with elementary, I was thinking this, did the teachers have much problem coordinating when they have a half-day student in the elementary class?
It can be tricky, but Dory Shetter is our magician. I don't know how she makes it work, but she works with every building, and she comes out, and these kids suddenly have these amazing
So I know
schedules.
sometimes in elementary, they change their daily schedule
Yeah.
and.
Yeah, and it can be tricky, and so what I found is that communication is key with all of this, that the buildings communicate with CVVA communicates back, we all communicate with the families, and as long as everyone's sort of kept in the loop, we can make it work.
Any other questions from the board?
I noticed that it seems like the first spike is in 8th grade. Do you think that's because this is like the first year we're really seeing the benefit of that, particularly like post-COVID and all that stuff, but now it's like not just that option, but it has all those benefits, including like the family testimonies and stuff?
Yeah, I think so. We had a very large spike, of course, in the middle of COVID. And then some families backed off and said, I don't want, this is not right, because they were also thinking of online learning as the triage that we put in place, which CV did a fantastic job, by the way, during all of that. But they started thinking about that's what online learning is, and it's not. That was learning online. So it's taken it sort of a year to come out of that. I think where we're really seeing people seeing the benefits of that. And as 8th graders, I found that they're starting to look ahead a little bit at high school and some of those options, and parents have gotten to the point that they're ready to try something different with their kids. They're a little bit older, they can learn more on their own. So families that aren't able to be home like they are with their elementary and being the learning coaches, by 8th grade, they feel like they can have a little bit of that release of responsibility, and the kids can try it, and the kids are more vocal.
Yeah.
So they will say to their parents that they want to try this, and now the parents understand it's there, and then that sort of starts the ball rolling.
Have any of our parents turned into cheerleaders for this, promoting it with, do you have new parents coming in because the parents sold them on it?
Yeah, and actually we did have.
I've got my answers coming. They're
There
back here.
you go.
Is that how you got into it? Do someone else? Is that how you entered?
I entered by checking into it myself, since Maya has started another student who we talked to about it has.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the students do too, because the bottom line, each student's getting what they need.
It's all about the kids.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Neil.
On to our action discussion items, we have change orders for the middle school and Smoketown.
Good evening. The space actually for CVVA is well underway at the new Smoketown, so that's exciting.
Awesome.
Studs are going in and things are being roughed in, so that's great.
Yeah.
I'll just go over these briefly. If you have any specific questions, just let me know if we want to go through the site one there. This one's actually technically not a change order. We're putting it against some allowance money that we have in the contract. We tried to balance a couple things out there. We took a deduct from stamped concrete. Needed to add the guardrail at the top of the northeast courtyard. So if you've driven by the new middle school and the construction fence is up front, it's because the retaining wall guardrail is not installed, and that's what this is. So that's the site one again. That it's
There was one word in Smoketown's change order, it was called decorative. Are we changing just to upgrade something?
It's a different than just a standard tube rail. It's actually the railing is a standard exterior tube rail. The guardrail is a little bit more decorative because it's in the front. It just has a cable railing system. It's still the same aluminum color. So it's not anything fancy, I guess.
What was wrong with the way it was
Well, it wasn't on the drawings originally.
at all?
Correct, and that's why that's the change order. It was, the retaining wall was there was a line, but
Oh, there was no
nothing
actual
called
rail.
out, so that's hence this
Oh, it was
add
out of
here.
their mission?
Yeah, it was not on the site drawings, just the retaining wall was on the site drawings, not the railing. So, and, yeah, so that's the result of this here. And then we pulled out the stamped concrete, which was a decorative pattern on the concrete, which seemed unnecessary. So that's the 14,000. So that's the site one, the general, the GC 16, yeah. There's a few different categories of things here. We have a few code items that says ABI code inspections. We did add the gym line striping for a different sport. And the CV logo at the middle of the gym court, basketball court. So that's the two there at the end. We did need to relocate the projector screen in the cafeteria. It was blocking a fire alarm device and was actually not conducive to accessing the restrooms properly when it was fully down. So that's on this one. And then the electrical moved, obviously the electrical, so it could be powered. And then the overhead door on this one is also on the electrical change order. That is now powered. It wasn't powered before. It was being accessed from the incorrect side. So instead of flipping it, which was, I think, the backup says like $3,000 or something like that, we're just motorizing that door instead. That'll be long-term the better solution than a manual operated door. So that's the general overview of the GC1. The HVAC 5 there, this was additional scope that was agreed to prior or during last summer for the mechanical to do overtime work to get some of the spaces open. This will be part of the dollars that we send back to general contractor because of the overall delay in the project. So right now, this is, an add to CV, but that's gonna be part of the package that goes back to the general contractor, so. But we had agreed to pay this to get that stuff moving and completed, classrooms in the cafeteria specifically. So that's the mechanical one. And then the electrical 19, I hit a few of those already, the overhead door, cafeteria projector, and then a couple code. The smoke damper needed electrical to it. And then the other time and material one, the larger one there is for the tech room, just locating electrical in the proper locations to meet the actually ordered equipment that are in those rooms. So that was all done time and materials by the EC. So those are the middle school ones. And then we have two for the new Smoketown, GCO2. Last time we presented some hardware changes, and actually there was some deducts to the GC. We probably should have put them all together at once. So this was the last of the remaining changes for the GC. That's the 9,000 there, based on the coordination and the discussion that we had. And then we took out the construction sign, and there was a little bit of a credit for a different set of hardware changes. So that's the GC1. And I failed to mention on the last EC1, actually that's a no-cost change because that's gonna go against the allowances as well. And then the last one, this EC1 for New Smoketown, they had installed a raceway in a portion of the corridor. More engineering caught it. That's not exactly what was spec'd, and it's fine, it meets code and all that, but it's not what was spec'd. And the EC offered a credit of 22,000 to leave it in place rather than pull it out and put something else in. So we agreed to do that. So that's Smoketown's EC02. The rest of the building is as spec'd, and that was just a section of the corridor. So that was a very fair credit rather than them redoing work and holding up portions of the job. So that's a quick run through of those. Are there any questions specifically on those?
Fascinating as this is, I was impressed with the fact that one electrical change can generate 12 pages of detail.
Well, we knew on the last one with the
Scrolling down,
credit.
thinking, how many connections are there in
Yeah.
this electrical system?
If we would have gotten maybe a $4,000 credit and they didn't give any backup, then we know that they wouldn't have looked at it properly and we would ask them to go back to it or pull it out. So they did their due diligence and did
I think this
it
numbered every
properly.
single wire in.
Yeah, that's correct.
I appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Any questions? If not, we're going to move on. Mr. Johnson, you have a presentation for us. For Brownstown.
Evening.
Good evening.
What I have this evening is a service contract for our building automation system for Brownstown. We do something similar with NRG yearly, comes through as a contract. We renew that yearly. We do not have NRG at Brownstown because we moved to a new system with Train. As we go to the middle school, that's also Train. That one's still under warranty. Their coverage period from that, as we do with the Smoketown project, again, that one's gonna be the Train system. So we're making a transition to standardize. When I first got here, we had 5 different control systems across 8 buildings. So we're trying to fix that, so, so this is a step in the process. What this does is it gives us, their maintenance techs come out, do regular, service inspections, help us troubleshoot. They are updating the building automation system program and software, keeping that updated as well. So any updates, it's just like Windows or Office. You get the update and you gotta make sure it's up to speed. So, this is for that. Price-wise, it's somewhat similar to what we're paying NRG for some of the other buildings. This has a little bit more, assistance and help because they can remote in and do things of that nature where NRG cannot at some of our buildings. And some of that's just due to the age of some of those systems as well, so that's really what it is. If you have any questions, it's a very lengthy document for really what it is, but
It's electrical, right?
yeah, it's electrical. Yeah, in this case, it truly is electrical, but it helps us control our mechanical systems and get the most energy efficiency we can out of the buildings.
Quick question, are all of our systems Train right now?
No, I have, majority of our rooftop and our chillers are all Train equipment. This is the control system that helps us see that equipment remotely and helps us
So this,
control.
yeah, and this only
Yeah.
pertains to the Train equipment then, correct? It doesn't,
Not
does it
necessarily.
apply to any of the other older equipment also that is not Train?
It's, we can actually see our lighting controls through this. We can see other manufacturers through this. It just does not have to be the Train equipment that this sees. I can see
Okay,
the
it can see
building
more than
completely.
that, okay.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Z.
Yes, April is the month where we start having 2 superintendent reports because we're in the hiring season right now. You may have seen that we have posted for elementary positions, secondary positions will be posted this week. And we'll start reintroducing new people again as people retire and move on or resign. So the report, there's nothing extraordinary. Again, it's just an April report with new hires that we have on there and some late resignations.
If there are no questions, I'll take a motion to approve the superintendent's report.
Motion to approve the superintendent's report.
Second.
We have a roll call, please.
Mr. Gensel?
Aye.
Mr. Benigno?
Aye.
Mrs. Capta?
Aye.
Mr. Hurst?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge?
Aye.
Mrs. Groff?
Aye. Policy review. I will do this whichever way works best for the board. We have considerably less in this half of the 300s than we did before. I don't know if any of you, if all of you have had time to review them. If you had, we can read down them now to make any changes or questions, or we can hold that off till next week. Because I don't know how prepared you are to talk about any of them.
I'm not as prepared as I
I
would
was gonna
like
say,
to
if we
be.
could hold it off to next week,
So
then I
that's fine.
more, that'd be great.
Then we'll wait
That
till
would be
next week. We can do
Thank
that,
you.
no problem.
Thank you.
I only had a few issues. It was more understanding than it was questioning what they had decided to do.
And if I may, just for an update, for next month, what we'll do is the 300s that we have pulled out for solicitor review, we'll bring those forward.
From
PS
last month and this month?
Right.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
So then we'll have all the 300s wrapped up in May. June, we will meet, the zeros are ready for our review. So I'll get with Mr. Gensel and his team and we'll look at the zeros.
Okay, we're moving along. Only have, 6 more sections to go?
We are smoking, we are just running fast. But again, the entire board manual will be up to date within a year, which is impressive.
Works for me. Mrs. Hunsinger, are you ready for the budget report?
I sure
Or are we ready for
Are
the
you?
budget report?
Okay, so.
It's coming.
It's coming, I'll wait. Okay, so this is our first blush at the 23-24 budget. The budget's very different this year, obviously, because we opted out of the Act 1 accelerated budget process. So instead, this has given us a lot more time now to be able to go through the numbers, scrub the numbers thoroughly, and come to you with the first budget using more accurate data and more current data. So I thought what we could do is start with where we are this year. And look at some of our revenue highlights. We're projecting that our revenues this year are going to be about $2.2 million over budget. A lot of that has to do with our real estate tax collections being over budget. Typically, we run a 98.5% collection rate. This year, it was 99.1%. So I don't know what happened, we'll take it. But as you know too, we're going to see lower delinquent real estate tax collections over the next year or two. Realty transfer taxes were also over budget, and that's a reflection of the real estate market out there. We also had some large commercial businesses that were sold that generated some of the additional tax. And the other item that really triggered the overage is the interest rates. Last year at this time, we were budgeting our interest income to be at about a 0.5% rate. And right now, we're locked in most of our investments at 4.75%. We anticipate that's going to hold pretty strong through 23-24. There's projections that that rate will drop off a little bit, but I think it's a good indicator right now. There also is a rumor out there that the Federal Reserve might increase rates again, so we'll see. And then, as you know too, our governor's budget is not passed until after all the school districts' budgets are passed. So it's very difficult when they're proposing a basic instructional subsidy, an amount that they're going to put into the formula and run that through to generate our basic ed subsidy. We've been very conservative in the last 2 years, which has resulted in us being over budget when we get the final numbers. So as far as the expenditures go, we're anticipating that our expenditures are going to be under budget by about $740,000 this year. Expenditures are really kind of hard to nail down right now. Revenues are pretty solid, but with the expenditures, a lot depends on the timing of when we get some of the expenditures in. And sometimes there are some large tuition invoices too that creep in that we weren't aware that a student was placed somewhere, that we can't track that. Anyway, our salaries and benefits are pretty much on target with budget. Our transportation cost is going to be over budget by about $200,000. The reason for that was we added one large bus this year, and then we also added a microbus. And then our mileage that we're using with Bright Bill has increased too. We also have 2 vans that we use, that CV owns, that we use to transport students. And those vans are down. They're not in service at the moment. Ken is trying to purchase 2 more, but they're in production. It's going to take maybe another 2 or 3 months until we actually can get those vans. So we know our transportation costs will be over budget. Energy is also over budget. We didn't realize that the energy rates were going to continue to increase like that they did. SOSL our contract with them is probably going to be under budget. We were pretty strong on the budget last year with them, but we had a lot of unfilled positions. So for 22-23, we budgeted a $1 million deficit. And what we're projecting right now is going to be about a $1.9 million surplus. So I think what we can do is, as we work through the budget process in the next 2 months, see where these projections start to really firm up, and then make plans. At that time, we can have the discussion to decide how we want to address that surplus, whether we want to add it to some of our committed fund balance or transfer some into capital reserve. So looking at our revenues for the 23-24 budget, as you know, I mentioned back in November, December that the Act 1 index this year was 4.1%, which we haven't seen that high since about 2008, 2009. And what I'm doing with this budget, and this is just my first projection for you, is to not use the 4.1% index, but start at a 3% increase, because that's kind of been our average, 2.5%, 3%. Sometimes we've had to use exceptions to go over the index to get up maybe higher than 3%, but we can just at least start here with a placeholder. We are seeing some growth in the taxable assessed value in the district. It's not very much. Right now it would only generate about $250,000. I anticipate that come June, we'll probably get another report from the assessment office, and if we see a bump in the value, then we can roll that into the budget, maybe look at the millage rate at that time. And our earned income taxes and realty transfer taxes are pretty much leveling out. So again, back to the governor's proposed budget. They are proposing that they add $567 million into the basic ed funding formula. If that number were to stay solid, we would get about $1.2 million in basic ed subsidy. In addition, additional basic ed subsidy. I was at on a webinar last month, and the person was saying that yes, they're very optimistic that there's going to be $567 million going into the basic ed subsidy. You're smiling, I know, and very optimistic, and I'm like, oh, that's great news, bud. And then they said that, well, maybe some of that money that they have designated for the basic ed subsidy might go into special education subsidy. So, okay, that would help us there too. Or some of it might go into Level Up, which is to help some more districts that are in more of a poverty situation. We don't qualify for the Level Up funding. So if that's the case, if it goes over to Level Up, then it's reducing our pot. So Dr. Z and I talked, we're kind of back and forth, and we're proposing right now, because we want to be realistically conservative. We don't want to be too conservative, but we don't want to be all pie in the sky and say, hey, we think he's going to fund the whole amount and then not get nearly as much. So right now we're starting at about $450 million going into the funding formula, and that would generate over $900,000 in basic ed subsidy. Ironically, I was at a meeting last week, and the person that presented at the webinar that I was just talking about back in March presented at this meeting last week and wasn't as optimistic now. And we're probably not going to know anyway by the time we finalize our budget where we're really going to land. They said with this being the governor's first year, probably won't see a budget until after June 30th from the state. And then ESSER fundings, the way the grants work with ESSER funds or Title I, you're given your allocation and then you have to spend it. And with ESSER funds, we can spend it over a period of a few years. The way grants work, if you expend about, we'll just say $100,000, you recognize $100,000 of that revenue at the same time. Whether you received it or not, you recognize it. So it washes. The bottom line comes out to a zero. So right now, I can, working with Jill and with Ken Johnson on some of our ESSER budgets for next year. Some of the projects that we thought were slated for this year are being delayed, no fault of our own. It's the Leola Elementary project that we have some ESSER funds designated for, that we're going to probably have to take that and roll that into the 23-24 budget. So you're going to be seeing fluctuations in the ESSER numbers over the next couple months. As far as salaries go, what we've done here is to increase the administrative and support staff salaries at 3%. The teachers are already based on their contract amount. And We're also undergoing a compensation study, and that has, by PSBA, and that has not been completed yet. So we don't know what that number is. That's still an outlier. Our healthcare costs are going to be increasing by about 5.4%. We did get another gift from PSERS this year. They reduced our PSERS rate from 35.26 down to 34%. We have not seen a decrease for quite some time. The next item on the agenda is the staffing services review proposal. So I went ahead and increased our staffing services with SOSL by about $90,000. So that's factored into the budget numbers that you're going to see in a second. Cyber tuition costs are remaining about the same. We have not seen much of a dip in the numbers of enrollment since COVID hit. We thought that they would go down. They're just probably going to run out their education at their cyber school, and then hopefully we can recognize some savings there. And of course, our energy costs are not decreasing, and we're still phasing in the millage rate for our debt service. So and I believe you have in your executive content that our staffing report. This staffing report number here of $1,546,000, that includes benefits. So that's not just all salary costs, that's the cost of PSERS, Social Security, health care. So that is included in the budget. We know it's a hard ask, it's a lot, but we feel that it's needed for us to stay focused on safety and student support. So we'll be talking about that here in a second. Capital projects. These three items here for a total of $905,000 are not included in the budget. I pulled them out. What we're proposing to do is have them paid out of the Capital Reserve Fund, which has about a $3.7 million balance in it right now. And then we'll turn around and at the end of this current fiscal year, depending on how that surplus looks, then we can replenish the Capital Reserve Fund. So as of right now, again, without knowing the impact of the compensation study, we are looking, and including a millage rate increase of 3%, we are looking at a deficit of $1,819,000. And then I've listed some proposed costs of planned use of the fund balance that would bring us down to about $113,000 deficit. But we still know we've got some work to do and some time to be able to fine tune these numbers even more. So if we stay with a 3% increase in our millage rate for the average taxpayer in Conestoga Valley, it would be an increase in tax of $96. So the upcoming dates that we need to focus on, certainly next week, I can come back with any more information that you'd like, any detailed information. If not, I'll circle back with you in May with, again, a bigger presentation and show you some 5-year projections as well.
Comments?
Any thoughts or questions?
I'll start off with, I'd like to see it below 3%. This $96 is a number we see a lot.
Yeah.
And we all know that despite the economy's seeming health, things are more expensive, things are more difficult.
Yeah.
And that $96 will mean more now than it did before. I'd like to see some pencil sharpening.
You got it.
If you can imagine. And of course, I always have my usual question, just because I can't let go of this. What is our tip contribution?
$150,000. I knew.
$150,000.
Yeah, I have not gotten this year's invoices for the TIF, but yeah, it's about $150,000 last year.
That has grown healthily, hasn't it? For those who don't know, that's tax money that we collect that we turn over to the township out of the goodness of our heart.
For road improvements,
Excuse me?
for sidewalk improvements.
Yeah, haven't seen any yet. I appreciate your knowing that I was going to do that.
Yes, ma'am. Anything else that I can answer for you? Okay.
Well done on your first one.
Thank you. Short, sweet, to the point.
Request, and I don't know where I found this on the
That's on the executive content.
Oh, okay. I went back to find it, thinking that Adele was going to have that. I couldn't find it when I went back. I should have looked down there. Thank you. No other questions?
Anything? Nothing on
Well
budget
done.
stuff? Okay, thank you, thank you,
No,
thank you,
she's
thank
still
you.
here.
I'm still here, yep.
Yep, I know, one more thing.
Yeah. Okay, so we are currently in the last year of our agreement with SOSL for staffing services for custodial, maintenance, food service, instructional pairs, PTAs. So I pulled out the RFP, request for proposal, that we sent out back in 2018 and updated it and contacted PDE, Department of Education. They have a procurement bureau. And because some of the staffing related to the food service workers is paid out of federal subsidies that the Food Service Fund receives, it ups our ante as far as the procurement regulations. And I'll spare you all those details because it'll make you want to pull your hair out. Seriously, I think I about did. Anyway, I went back and.
You might as well tell me then.
You already read them, okay, sorry.
You're gonna have to come up with another thing.
I will, I promise.
Just say hair or beard. but-
Okay. Anyhow, we went back and forth a couple times, and then I got the exact language in that they wanted, and they approved the RFP, sent it out, and I listed the companies, that expressed interest. I sent it out to all the companies that had submitted proposals back in 2018. So we received 3 proposals back, and I thought, good, we always like to have 3. And the 2 of them did not meet the qualifications that PDE required related to federally funded staffing services. And I had it outlined on this page in the scope of services, and also very clearly on, I had separated out actually the pricing for the federally funded staff members. You cannot have, the way their contract is set up now, for non-federally funded workers, they will bill us the hourly rate plus a percentage markup, depending on whether it's full-time or part-time. For federally funded staff, don't ask me why, it's the salary plus benefits plus a fixed rate administrative fee. So that's the requirement. We still looked at the proposals, even though they technically didn't qualify. When evaluating SOSLs, we're familiar with them. We've got a good working relationship with them. What they did, instead of having 2 different percentage markups for full-time or part-time, they've provided a blended rate. And then they also provided their fixed rate administrative fee. So I just kind of ran the numbers, not taking into account any increase that the employees might receive effective July 1. And it would be an increase in cost of $90,000, which is what I put down here, 1.5% increase.
And there's no reason why we aren't happy to stay with SOSL.
Correct.
That's the most important part of it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions?
All right, we'll put that on the consent agenda for next week.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Schaefer. This is part of a long journey of continuing growth of our special education.
Yes. All right, good evening, everyone. I thought it would behoove us if we kind of looked back a little bit to where we were. And so that's why the title of the presentation is wanting to look back from the last special education plan, which was 2020 to 23, and then look into what's next, which is our new plan, which we just finalized, which is for 23 to 26. So many of you are so new to the school board. We wanted to give you a little bit of history into where we've been over the last 3 years, and just to give you an idea of kind of the work that the district has done, and the principals and all of our support staff and the board has taken on too, because there are some major changes that we took on here. So let me first explain what a special education plan is, and it's a 3-year plan that basically describes what our commitment is going to be in order to ensure that education for our students that have disabilities and are eligible for special education. And so it describes our programs and services that we have within district, and also our programs and services that we may have to have our students attend outside of the school district. And then if there's any monitoring or any corrections that we had to make over the last 3 years, we also talk about those in this plan. So this plan is about 109 pages long. Most of it is a huge explanation of each classroom. I don't know if Ken's still here. Ken helped by providing measurements for all of our classrooms. So in case he left, I just wanted to say thank you to you. Because every single classroom that we use for special education, we need to provide square footage. And so when I asked him to put together a lot of numbers for me, he did that. So I just wanted to make sure that he knows that it was appreciated. So when I first came here in 2019, in the fall of 2019, our special education plan was due in the spring of 2020. And we all remember the spring of 2020, don't we? A good time for all of us. So we put together a 3-year plan at that time. And we put together a clever little title for it. We called it 2020 Vision, which is, I know, a bad dad joke, but it's what we wanted to put together, what we wanted to see CV looking forward into the future. Because we knew we had a lot of holes in what we were providing in terms of our continuum of special education. And so when we look at our continuum, our document that basically said what we were able to provide for our special education students here in CV, we had a lot of open holes. And everything in blue was not being provided in the district. And then some of those are even outside of the district, like our autistic support services. We used a lot of IU13 and Elanco services, or even Manheim Township services. So we were using our neighboring school districts to provide services for our CV kids. So we knew in 2020 that we wanted to do more services here, more supports for our students, and bring them home, back to CV. So we put together a continuum for the next 3 years that would fill in all of those areas that we weren't providing for. And so when we look at our continuum now, you can see that our level services and learning support, emotional support, life skill support, autism support are provided for in all areas. Does that mean that all of those services are provided here in the district? No. Many of them are still provided outside the district for those students that need those types of services. But what we can say is we can provide what's necessary in the district now. And so that's, when we look backwards and see what we have done in 3 years, we have completed our mission, our goal, to be able to say that our students here at CV can access an education here in the district now. So some of the tools that we've added since 2021 is we put together a PACE program for our transition students at the high school. And what we're talking about there is a curriculum for students to take work experience in a kind of a sheltered workshop method in the high school, and then take those skills and then use them outside in the community. So we put together a huge transition program now at the high school that wasn't in existence before. So before at the high school, if you needed those transition services, we would access the IU for those. Now we're able to do it in-house. And we have students that even SOS, this was a big bonus for SOS. SOS can employ some of our students for us now. So even, getting those linkages and those partnerships settled here was a huge find for us. So I was happy that we stayed with SOS, because that was a big deal for us, and we were able to employ some of our kids. We have job training now. We have 5 days of job training that we're able to access for our kids. So again, kids in the community, taking those skills and being able to really improve their life after high school. We have our ULS curriculum for our life skill classes. We've bought curriculum tools for all levels of our programs and supports across the district. We had a lot of holes in what we were providing. So we really took a look at what each program needed and got that curriculum set. We paid for most of the curriculum through our access funds that we generate. So that was something that we also took a good look at, and how we could get that curriculum and use those access funds. It was kind of, you guys all maybe remember our dad has always said that the funds kept going up and we weren't using. So we took a really hard look at making sure we're using our access funds in a much better way. We have executive functioning in our programs. We put the VB map together in our autism support classes that we run at Brownstown Elementary. We have added BCBA support. This year we've added some comprehensive support from Patan for our emotional support classes, and we did some reset training for emotional support classes with Diane Carreri. And we've also invested in IEP Writer, which is our IEP writing system. So big shout out to the steering committee, and some of these people are here tonight. So he's right back there, Mr. Tom Richard. He participated as a steering committee. Dr. Diane Martin was a member of the steering committee. Of course, Dr. Zukowski, our special education consultant, Dr. Tara Kohler, Stephanie McClune, our director of special and gifted education, and then Mrs. Kristen Bishop was the parent that participated on our steering committee. So it was a great. We were able to meet for 3 hours and had a really good conversation. So that was nice. So when you go through a process like this, it is very, I guess, organized by what PD wants you to do first. So what they do is they indicate what you need to improve, and it's based on data. And so we have 3 areas that they would like us to improve. The first one is secondary transition, and a lot of our secondary transition pieces, like they've looked at the last 3 years of data. And you remember what has happened over the last 3 years, which was COVID. So we did not have as many of our students being able to participate in our community efforts for jobs because there wasn't that availability for people in 2020, 2021 for our kids to go out in the community. So that affected us pretty significantly when they look at our audit for secondary transition. So we expect that to obviously change with having our kids being in the community now. Our PSSA participation rate. Now this is something that's interesting to look at because it's not necessarily something we can change. We exceeded the state average, the state rate, what they would say students, they want 95% of students to participate in the PSSA. That's the target. The state rate didn't even meet that 95%. We went over the state rate, but we didn't hit 95%. The majority of that PSSA participation rate is because parents opt out of the PSSA, which is absolutely anyone's right to do. So we're going to continue to offer the PSSA, but we're not meeting what the state would like us to meet in terms of 95% participation. So if that gets dinged, it gets dinged. The other area.
In special ed, we get dinged in general ed for PSSA participation.
It's just,
because of parental choice.
it's okay. Parental choice is okay.
Right, we're fine with that.
Yes.
Yes.
And the last area is that there's a section where students are being educated in other settings. And this is something that we saw at a very high level when we first looked at this back in 2020. And that means students that are not being educated in their neighborhood buildings. And so that number has significantly come down since 2020, but it's still not under the target that the state wants us to do. So we still make decisions based on what students need. We still make those decisions in IEP meetings. We're not looking at this as a state target that we have to improve. We're still going to be just making decisions based on student need. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that we're not going to go at making decisions for students in an IEP and where they need to attend based on a state target. It's always going to be based on what a student needs. But we did get dinged for being still above that state target for not having students more in the district. So indicators that we are on track for is that we're not disproportional in our suspension or expulsion of students with disabilities with race or ethnicity. We're not disproportional in representation of race, ethnicity, and identifying them with a disability. We do timely evaluations. We have a high graduation rate. We have a low dropout rate. We have good parent involvement. We do good early education transitions. We have post-school outcomes that are appropriate for our students. We have a low resolution and a low mediation rate. So that means that we're able to work with our families and we're able to make decisions in a collaborative manner.
So we're doing great.
So we're doing good.
When the state dings you for something like that, is there any penalty or anything like that, or is it just shows up in an official document?
So the document, I would be, in the report, it would say that it was noted, and then I have to put together a plan.
The response?
So the response to the PSSA participation rate is that we will continue to make it available to all.
You can't just fill that in and say, what more do you want?
Yeah, I can't do that. No, I can't do that.
Just so that might, save us all a lot of time, because we are doing exceptionally well in this area. And we appreciate your efforts.
And what is PSSA?
That is the state test that students take, the Pennsylvania State System of Assessment. Is that what it's called?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Third grade 8th grade, 11th grade.
Third through 8th grade.
And then 11th.
Is for the high school. Maths and algebra, literature.
And as soon as you learn that much of
biology.
the alphabet, they'll come up with some more new ones for us.
Yes. And so when you look at the special education plan, there are areas that we need to complete, and they're really regulated by code and law. And so we have to basically say that we are going to follow code and law, and we're going to follow that code and law in the following ways. So these are the areas that we need to explain. So the first one is non-resident oversight, our 1306 placements. And a 1306 placement is a student that may be in a residential psychiatric facility. And so what happens when that student is out of school, but they're receiving psychiatric treatment somewhere, they're considered a 1306. So that treatment center may be outside of our district.
306 placements.
So they may be outside of our district. When the facility that's hosted in a different district, that district becomes responsible for their education. We become responsible for the funding of that education. So it's a resident, a non-resident oversight, basically. So the same thing would happen is if we had a psychiatric facility in our district here in CV, how we would service those students that were in that psychiatric facility and how we would oversee their programming and work to communicate with their home school district.
Do we
So,
have such a facility?
we don't.
I didn't think so.
We don't. When I worked at my last school district, we had Philhaven in our school district. So we needed to provide a plan to the state on how we would educate the students that were in Philhaven residential. So in this case, I explained that we do not have such facility, but if we did, this is what we would do. And so that's what the plan says. Incarcerated student
And we would
oversight.
do it well.
And we would do it. So incarcerated student oversight. So when they talk about incarcerated students, we're talking about juveniles that are in an adult facility. Here in CV, we do not have a incarcerated juvenile facility in an adult facility. They have a youth intervention center, which is just for juveniles, and it also is not in CV. It is in School District of Lancaster. So again, in this program, in this plan, I explained that we do not have such a program, but if we did have such a program, this is what we would do. It's important to know that may sound crazy to have juveniles in with adults, but in Lebanon County, in the district I used to work at, Lebanon County does not have a youth facility. So a juvenile that is in prison is in with adults. So the district that I worked in we provided the education for those students in that prison. And so there are places all around Pennsylvania that juveniles are in adult correctional facilities and districts go in and provide education for them. Out-of-district placements, this will be a listing in this plan of all the different facilities that we have students in. So it includes IU placements, we talk about the Western Pennsylvania School for the Deaf. We have students that still go to Elanco for some of our autistic support services and also some MDS services. So it's just a listing of all the different schools that our students attend out of our district. We explain our positive behavior support programming and how we staff and how we train staff to provide positive behavior support. So we talk about what our restraint policies are, what our positive behavior support policy is. Again, it's all related to code. We have intensive interagency explanation, which is what we do if we have a hard to place student. And what that means is a student that has needs that we cannot find the most appropriate placement for. And intensive interagency support is something that the state provides us. So if we had trouble finding a program that fit the needs of a student, we would contact their interagency at PDE and they would provide a contact for us and they would walk us through. So in another school district that I worked in, I had to use that one time and we found a program for a student that was in Kansas. So when we're talking about how difficult it is sometimes to find the right placement for students, we're talking about very high level education decisions. Okay, so that's what we're talking about, intensive interagency. And then we talk about our education programming and our special education facilities, and that is where the real number of pages really come to. So what we're talking about, what the educational programming is, it's a listing of every single program that we have in special education at CV. So it includes every single learning support teacher, every single speech language therapist, every emotional support teacher, every life skill teacher, every autistic support teacher. And then our special education facilities, that is a listing of every single classroom we have with Ken's information about our square footage. And it just gives you an idea of what each classroom looks like across the district. So whenever we change special education classrooms from one year to another, if we would have to move down the hallway, PDE has to come and have eyes set on that new classroom and approve it for us to make sure that we are not doing special education in small areas. And then lastly, we have the personnel development area, and this is, I think, my favorite, well, it is my favorite part of the whole plan, which it sets out a 3-year plan for how we're going to provide training for these specific areas. These are again, it's state required. We can do personnel development in other areas, but these are the areas that the state requires us to do. So we're looking at training for autism, positive behavior support, how we do paraprofessional training, how we do transition programming training, how we do parent training, and how we do IEP development. So it's a listing of all the kinds of programming that we would do for personnel. A lot of the help came from this. I would say a thank you to Kristen Bishop, the parent, who had some really good ideas for the parent training section for us. So we really have bumped up our parent training with some of her great ideas. And of course, you know all about our positive behavior support that we're doing across the district. So that, again, is in here as explanation. So next steps that we're going to be really focusing on over the next 3 years is we want to really focus on how we're going to provide, we want to strengthen our programs that we have. We really want to get these to be well-oiled machines and be supported in every way possible. So some of the things that we're talking about is doing inclusion paraeducators to support those kids in the regular education classroom. We want to expand our teacher and student support through our support staffing. And of course, with every new early intervention group of students that are coming from IE13 into school age, there come needs for that autism support programming. So as they come, we just add more programs and support through our autism support classes. So we'll do expansion as needed when we need to do that. And so if you want to, anyone can look at this plan. It is located on our website. It is under the department tab, special education. And the plan is right there to look at, and there's also the old plan is there as well. And if you have any questions or you want to talk about it more in further detail, I have my contact information and also our new director for special and gifted education, Stephanie McLean, there too.
Questions? That's a lot all at one time.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That wasn't 10 minutes, was it? I'm sorry. Let's get on a roll.
It was a handful to do.
I read through that whole thing.
I appreciate that very much.
And you do this every 3 years?
Every 3 years.
Plus you do have to keep that updated?
Yes. So whenever we do make changes in classroom programming, we have to do an addendum. It's called a separin, in which we're adding our facility information in here, or if we add a teacher, we add that into this plan. So it is a living document.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Mann and Dr. Kozer.
Good evening.
This is a program we've been talking about for a
This
little while.
we're back, yes.
You're back.
So the contract, the proposal you have in front of you is the last piece of the curriculum work puzzle that we've been putting together for you. So this is the scope of work with the McTighe Associates. This was the one that we were thinking might be upwards of 6 figures. So guess what? We came in a little under the proposed amount there. But if you remember, this is being funded through ARP ESSER as part of our learning loss, addressing those ELA deficits and some of the math deficits as well. So this is the actual consultants coming in over the summer, doing the work with our curriculum committees, and then ongoing, you can see ongoing support from Jay McTighe and from specific consultants to keep the project moving. So we wanted to bring this tonight for discussion. It will go on consent next week, but wanted to see if any of the board members needed more information around this proposal.
I think you went over the basics so well the last time, but now it's just kind of like, okay, that fills in the number piece.
There it is.
And it is less, so that's good. But it's critical, so.
Thank you.
Okay,
Perfect.
be on consent next week, thanks.
All right, up until this point, everything short of the actual budget information will be on consent agenda. And we are now, the reason we're all here this evening. I need and would appreciate a motion for agenda item I.
Is that my part?
That's your cue.
Okay. Well, I move that the Board of School Directors of the Conestoga Valley School District to appoint Dr. Daniel Hartman as the next Superintendent of Schools for the Conestoga Valley School District to a 4-year term effective July 1st, 2023, and to approve the contract pending receipt of all required documentation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Benigno?
Aye.
Mrs. Kapka?
Aye.
Mr. Hurst?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge?
Aye.
Mr. Gensel?
Aye.
Mrs. Groff?
Aye. That makes it official. Congratulations. If you'd like to speak to us, make a few comments, that's up to you.
Sure. I'll keep it brief.
Yeah, your son will appreciate that. He's been very patient.
Yes, they're doing a great job, but I really just, I'm not sure who I should look at, the audience or the board, but I just really appreciate and I'm honored to be able to serve as the next superintendent. I appreciate the board's process, it's a very thorough process in my opinion, but that just showed, that was just an indicator of how much of a value this community and this district puts on education, and I'm ready to get to work. If I learned nothing, if I knew nothing about the district before this evening, though, what I heard tonight, man, really stellar things happening here. So I'm excited to learn more, and I'm excited to share more about myself and kind of my vision and my values, hopefully soon here, next week. So
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm going to take a privilege here by taking some time to thank those people who helped us through this very long process. My list is long. First is the community and staff for providing input before and during the search, and for their patience as the process moved ahead. To the applicants who shared various insights into education and leadership. To the members of this board and their families who adjusted schedules to give countless hours to review documents, share their perspective, insight, and knowledge in a cooperative atmosphere. Of course, to our search advisor, Tom Templeton, for his organizational guidance and patience. To our board secretary, Marilyn Martin, for her professional attitude and proficiency in whatever we needed, whenever we needed it.
Especially the Olive Garden, that was good.
To Dr. Superintendent, Dr. David Sikulski, who managed to serve at arm's length and always accommodated our needs and requests, providing advice when asked and always focused on what was best for CV. To Jeff Litz, our solicitor, who steered us through the legal requirements and worked with us day, evening, or weekend, and even to Virginia Montgomery from PASA, who, while advocating from a different perspective, made herself available at all times. To Dr. Hartman, who through the long process remained professional, focused, cordial, and patient. To Tim Arnier, our CV Food Services Bountiful Harvest, for accommodating our dietary needs when evenings started early and lasted late. To Dr. Metzinger and her staff for accommodating us as we juggled candidates, focus groups, and the board throughout her building. Entire CV administrative cabinet, who always kept us focused on the district's work at hand. CV maintenance, who cleaned up after us and made sure the building was secure when we left. To Katie Odell, who got the final announcement prepared and corrected with the media. On a personal note, to Mrs. Tyson, who quietly tolerated my mood swings each morning without question, although I knew she wanted to know very deeply what was happening. And my own son and daughter, who always suffer their mother's quixotic moods and offer confident support. the entire CV family for making our work worth striving to do as best we can. With apologies to anyone I may have overlooked, this officially ends the search initiative. I encourage everyone to take the opportunity to meet Dr. Hartman, who will be the focus of the community forum next Monday at 6:30 in the high school auditorium, and to participate in effective orientation and transition. Any other board comments on the topic? Or did I cover just about everything?
You did great.
Wasn't much left, was there? That much said, you will look at the tentative board agenda for next month. I don't know if we ever took the secondary date for the contract approval or not, but we will have the full contract with all the numbers for next month. This is another time for anyone in the public that would like to address the board on any issue. Would someone like to speak? You know all you need to know now?
Actually, real quickly, I've been coming to school board meetings for almost 23 years. Literally, I'm here all the time. You new board members don't know how lucky you are to see a budget like that. I'm telling you, it is unusual to be able to have excess money, and you walked into a good job right when you got in there, because you don't see school board budgets like that every year. So,
And we shouldn't get used to it.
because you might not have the same next year to look at.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak to the board? If not, do any board members have any initiatives or announcements? I will just remind you that we have a retreat coming up that hopefully we'll all be at. And with that much said, I will accept a motion to adjourn to executive session for legal and personnel reasons.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.